All right, welcome to another episode of Limitless Live. I'm excited to be joined by my friend Connor Sell today. Tell you more about him in a second. But first, Connor, I'm going to let you start the process of telling us a little bit more about you. And really the goal of this conversation today is just to give us an opportunity to hear a little bit more of the story behind you, not just your business, but you, the person.
Sure.
And then kind of how that intermingles with what you're doing now business-wise and why you're doing it the way that you're doing it. So I'm just going to let you take it from there. Tell me a little bit about just your story of getting into doing quality glass of the Upstate.
Okay, cool. I will give you the nutshell. Pull any thread you like.
Okay, go for it.
So I was in aviation almost 15 years. We've
Okay.
talked before. In aviation almost 15 years. Joined the Air Force. Started doing private aviation like corporate jets, etc.
Yep.
Wiring, electrician. Then I got into an aircraft parts business. And I was working for a local company here, running their materials department, and that was more like an entrepreneur type of thing.
Yeah.
They graced me with this ability to kind of like make my own path.
Mm-hmm.
It was necessity on their end, and I just happened to be a fit. It worked out. I worked for a great guy there, and with a bunch of great people. And so along the way, there was an opportunity to step into entrepreneurship through a very unique path. And so I consulted a local attorney who's great. And I said, this is what I'm thinking. I work for them. They passed on this opportunity. And they just said, we don't want it. And I said, this is a great opportunity. I'm going to step into entrepreneurship. And he said, this is a great idea, but let me tell you what you need to do. And because I was kind of surprised. I was like, oh, this guy thinks it's a good idea. Well, right before, and I've told this story before, but right before he walked into the room to meet with me, the junior attorney said, he's been an investor in like 50 plus businesses.
Mm-hmm.
He still has minority ownership in some, majority ownership. And I just got an introduction to the guy who I was going to consult with. And he tells me this plan to make my dream happen at the time. And I left there and I was driving away. Maybe over the next few weeks, I was like, how does this guy, he gave me really wise advice. How's he in and out of like 50 plus businesses? Different, from real estate to other things like I understand cigars, etc.
Okay.
And I was like, that's a cool story. So I said, how do you do that? And he basically, what he was telling me about was advising for equity in a business.
Okay.
And he was more of a business owner than an attorney. Really intriguing. So I said, I think I'd like to own a business. This started me down this path of how do you buy a business? How do you buy a business and not maybe personally guarantee $1 million? How do you do that? So, you find paths on the interwebs, like buying a business with very little money down. You find some scam stuff, you find some real stuff, and you sort through. And basically that was like the nexus of my line of thinking that led me to this business. And then, long story short, I tried to buy a glass business. It came up, and I prayed, and I was just thinking, what do I need to do to make this happen? And as it turned out, that business, the owner of that business, it was a great fit. Huge blessing. It didn't work out. That guy kind of like retraded me at the end of the deal. He was like, I need way more money down, like significantly more money down. And that was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because then my dad was like, what do you really need to start this business? And I was like, well, I need a little money. I need X, Y, and Z tools. I need a trailer. I need et cetera. I need a guy who really knows glass. And then slowly but surely, God just provided those things in miraculous ways.
Yeah.
That seemed to pop up out of nowhere. He provided friends and resources, and that's how I got here.
So yeah, I want to hear more of your thought behind why was your first intent to buy a business versus start a business? Did you think that would just give you a little bit of a leg up of like, hey, I don't really know how to run this business. So maybe if I just have some people that know how to operate within the business, I can just inject my own vision into it. What was your thought behind wanting to buy an existing business versus just, hey, let me bootstrap this thing and start it myself?
Yeah, that's the juxtaposition is you buy into something that's already a machine or you bootstrap something from the ground up. That was the last thing on my mind.
Okay.
I was like, no, I'm not doing it. I tried to bootstrap an aircraft parts business, had some success, but in the aviation world, there's strings attached to the money, just because the people who own private aircraft,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of money flowing in and
Oh,
out, and they have huge expectations.
right.
So when things go a little bit sideways, tempers flare. people
Mm-hmm.
get people get
You're fired. Yeah.
you're fired.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The stakes are really high.
Yeah. Yeah.
The returns can be good, but I tried to bootstrap it, and I just realized, like, hey, I don't really want to do that.
Fair.
There's a little naivete
Yeah.
also as well. But I said, okay, let me, studying Warren Buffett or people like him, it's like, what do you invest in? Well, you invest in what you understand.
Mm-hmm.
If you buy something you don't understand, good luck running it. So I
Right.
was like, what do I understand? Well, I understand I'm like a woodworker. I understand trades businesses. I understand why humans buy things from other humans.
Right.
And I understand there's people who know glass. So if I can just understand it, I can buy it.
Yep.
Of course, naive, because it's hard to operate a business, as you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially one that somebody else built.
Yep.
And there's customers attached to that person's name.
Yep.
And you're just this, now you're this new face. Hey, I bought this and I'm this
Yep.
guy. And like I'm 33 now, and it's like, okay. So that was kind of the thinking, is buy what you understand, step into something that already has equity, already cash flowing. Great plan. It's not how it worked out for me, and was a huge blessing. But I think for somebody who's ingenuitive, that could be a great path.
For sure.
Many people have done that.
Yeah. So just kind of closing the loop on all that, what do you feel like you learned through that process of, hey, I think I want to buy a business. Now, actually, that was a blessing in disguise that this didn't work out. I end up, starting one. What did you learn through that process? Like business wise, personally, what are just some of the things that stick out to you?
This is probably going to sound like I'm being overly pious, but I will say trust God,
Okay.
because His plans and His way is greater than our way.
Yeah.
That was the one thing that maybe I didn't see at the time, and it's easy to like kind of trivialize.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the God of the universe knows better. Of course, but in reality, it's like, submit yourself to that plan. You have a desire as a human being. Ask Him, talk to Him, and then just trust that that process is going to unfold.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I painted all the details, it would be like, oh, Connor had a desire and an idea, but then when he submitted to a plan that God had, people and resources and things came out of the woodworks to unfold a desire from a man's heart. That was number one. But some practical things I learned were, which I knew intellectually, but until you experience it, you can't know.
Yeah.
You don't let your emotions get caught up in a deal. Don't tie your identity into a thing, because if that thing gets crushed, your identity becomes crushed.
That's right.
You have to know who you are, and you have to be okay if a deal doesn't work out. The most powerful leverage you have in a negotiation is, I'm good to walk away.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're not, you end up in a bad situation, which is what would have happened to me
Mm-hmm.
had I stepped into that. Because little did I know, that gentleman was subcontracting. He had a medical issue. I found him in March
Okay.
to sell the business. By the time we get to the end of things, ready to close it, it's April, May. He had been subcontracting all the work since January and didn't tell me. His employees left, but the books looked like he was making money. But
I
you know,
see.
yeah,
Yep.
he was in a tough spot.
Yeah.
God be with him.
Yeah.
He built a 20-year business.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Yeah.
So now on the other side of that, I guess I'm going to use the word expectations for a second. So for me, like, exceeding expectations is actually one of our core values at Limitless. If you go back to any memorable or positive really experience that you've had in life, it's always relative to what you expected, right? In other words,
Absolutely.
for somebody to say that was a positive experience, that meal was really good, the way I was treated at this hotel was great, the shower glass guy that came over to my house did a phenomenal job.
Absolutely.
It's always relative to expectation, right? I was
Yes.
expecting this, and they did that and a little bit more, right?
Yep.
So we all have expectations around everything, right? Every client that walks into our door at Limitless is expecting something, whether it's something about the experience, what it's going to cost, how long the appointment's going to last, what the therapist is going to do during the appointment, what's going to happen after the appointment. There are expectations around everything. And in order for us to win people's loyalty, but also deliver a great experience, we have to exceed those expectations. It's not enough to just meet most of them, right? Okay. So I have, through learning that, I've become very mindful of my own expectations walking into any situation, knowing that my expectations are going to frame how I interpret what happens next.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay. So
Absolutely.
there's the background to my next question, which is, so you decide to start this business. What were your expectations once you say, hey, I'm doing this? Like expectations in terms of what the actual life of business owner is going to be like, how successful is this going to be, all that kind of stuff. And how has the first, what are you, 2 years into business now?
Almost 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah, in May.
How have the first 2 years panned out relative to your expectations?
My expectations. We all have dreams and a vision, right? And then it's exactly as you described. We frame things around those dreams and visions.
Mm-hmm.
You can't really know how hard something is going to be until you experience it.
For sure.
It is a hard endeavor. I don't need to belabor that point. Anybody who's watching this or interested in this may be interested in business.
Yep.
They may know already. It's hard. My expectation was really that we would just come in and do a good job for people. And my expectation was humans and relationships are the leverage. It's not about necessarily, there were some givens, like I can learn how to do shower glass. I can learn how to manage the back end systems. I can build all this stuff. I've already done this in another business. I know how to do it. But the expectation around human behaviors, how do you manage a builder who needed something yesterday
Right.
and they're upset that they don't have it? I have some huge expectations. In some ways, we've exceeded like goals that we had.
Okay.
In other ways, I've fallen short. I expected one thing, which was that we could help people with what they needed, which is the core of business. There's a market demand, you meet the demand. But actually, that's not what I've been asked to do, which is a revelation recently.
Okay.
Over the last year or so, but it's become poignant, which is for this assignment, God has put me in a place to help people. And we do shower glass. We can do it pretty good. And we can make money doing it. And it's a good business and it helps people and it meets a market demand. But actually, it's deeper than that, which is something maybe people talk about and they try to say we have core values and we have these things and we want to help people. Like it's one thing to say that, I've learned. But God has revealed to me the way you interact with people on a daily basis, just in your business, is touching them at a deeper level than you can understand, because we're living in a society where there's a lot of trouble. There's a lot of troubled minds, etc.
Yep.
And just that one interaction where you went the extra mile, it wasn't just about the expectation they had and the expectation you exceeded. It did something to them as a person and maybe restored a little hope, a little trust. And he's, revealed to me the responsibility, and it comes down to stewardship, how you steward this thing, because I'm going a little deep here, but
please do.
The truth is there's some scriptures that say he does things for his name's sake. And he says, if you bear my name, you're not only doing it for you, it's not so you can make money. You're bearing my name. I have you in an assignment. Take these people and I'm entrusting them to you. And that's been hard.
Okay.
Really hard.
Okay.
Because I don't have the time. I don't have the resources. I don't have to go the extra mile requires this. And it's like, well, do you want to help people or do you not?
Right.
You want to say it or you want to live it? So
okay. So
interesting.
Give me an example. What like if we're gonna go down that path of like feeling really called to help people, what is it? Give me an example of what does it look like for you to feel like you've had to go above and beyond, or maybe not had to, chosen to go above and beyond for a client or in a situation where, I mean, hey, at the end of the day, I'm a subcontractor. I showed up, I did the work, I get to leave, check the box, cash my check, and move on.
Yep.
Where have you seen the need or the opportunity to go farther than that?
So in everyday like business operations, that's just always on the lookout. Like, how could I go one step farther to help someone? Missed the mark 100 times, missed opportunities, failed even, all that stuff. It's all not roses. But at the same time, that's like always on the radar. Like, what could we do in communication even to just go a little bit farther? But the real ways that it's been shown to me that like, hey, the test comes, one example. It's extremely busy. I don't have any time. This is a few months ago. My friend that I did some shower glass for, he owns a contracting business. He says there was a church in Greer. You can find the news article. There was a church in Greer. Some type of like mentally ill guy broke out all the windows in this church. He lives like right beside it. Huge problem. He says, can you just go take a look at it? And could you see about replacing the windows?
Mm.
This was like an endeavor. I
Mm.
didn't have time. I had things to, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, for
we
sure.
could all make those excuses.
Yep.
And in that moment, I just luckily, was put in a place like, hey, these people really need help. I go to the church, I meet them, they really need help. And it was like, do you actually want to help people? This wasn't even a business thing. Like there was no money to be made.
Right.
It was just like a demonstration of who are you as a person?
Mm.
Do you actually want to? Or do
Right.
you just want to say you help people?
Right. Yeah. It's so funny that you say that. My wife and I were having this conversation last night about how sometimes we throw out those like token statements of like, hey, let me know if you need anything or whatever. And deep down, if we were to like, go on a lie detector, our next like hope is like, please don't say you need anything.
Don't say you need anything at all.
It's kind of like, hey, let me know if you need help getting that stuff out to the car. And they're like, yeah, actually I do. And you're like, dang it. Now I got to drop what I'm doing and go help you out to your car kind of thing.
100%.
But it is very revealing of our own heart posture in that moment too, of like, man, I am, let's just say I'm embarrassed sometimes to sit there and look at how shallow my own
Me as well.
intentions and
Me as
how
well.
selfish I can be to go, hey, let me give this really empty gesture so that you feel like I care about you. But deep down, I'm really absorbed in what I got going on right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And yet the Lord really uses those moments to convict us and show us some of those, our erring of our ways, so to speak.
For sure.
Yeah. And
sure.
grateful for those moments to shine a light in a dark place, because otherwise we just continue to live in that way and have no correction. And we all need correction from time to time.
My wife makes fun of me because she says, Connor, you pray these dangerous prayers and then you forget about them. You pray things like, Lord, reveal my heart and test me. She's like, can you just pause for a minute?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, I want to figure out how to best phrase this, but one of the things that I've known about you since I've known you for a couple years, is that maybe there's a stereotype of people in any one of the trades, which is very much like, they're blue collar, they're hardworking, they're whatever, but maybe they're not the most well-read or academic or anything like that. I think you very much defy that stereotype from the standpoint of, you can tell in any interaction with you that you put a lot of thought into the choices that you make, the words that you say, but you're also just like somebody who's very, like, cultured is not the right word, but you're well read. Like, I can tell you really take some time to investigate and dig deep, whether it's on the technical aspects of your job, whether it's real world events, whether it's spiritual life, whatever. You're not one of those people that's just content with like, oh, I guess this is good enough. I guess I have it figured out. It seems like you're always digging a little deeper. So I just wanted to ask you, like, where does that come from?
Yeah, I think certain people are born with archetypes. This is obviously my personal opinion, but like, you're born with an archetype, like, who are you at the root level? And I have this like seeking desire for truth, which probably sounds like virtuous or whatever, but actually if you dig deep into what that is, a lot of people have had that. A lot of people have other archetypes too, but a lot of people who have had that have lived very troubled lives. They fall into things that don't benefit them or the people around them because they're in the pursuit of more knowledge, etc. So it's been a long tempering process, no pun intended with the glass there, but it's been a long tempering process of like, hey, this thing is instilled in you to find more information that's useful. And now it's kind of being like shepherded into like, well, now you have all this information. It wasn't just for you. It was for other people. It was for other people. So I don't know where it comes from. I just know that my wife reminds me that you could get absorbed easily into the pursuit of knowledge. And I think it's really good to have. But at the same time, it's just a balance. Like,
sometimes, and if this doesn't apply to you at all, by all means, tell me. But sometimes I feel like people who say a lot of things that you just said come from a place. You said you really like to like search for like the real truth, like cut through all the crap. Like, let's figure out what's really true. Does that come from a place of like feeling like you were deceived or that you had the wool pulled over your eyes at some point, and then all of a sudden being like, hold on a second. Well, if I wasn't right about that, or if that's not true, then now I'm starting to question everything. Like, is that part of your story at all?
100%.
Okay.
And I could go into some gory details, but that is what was revealed to me.
Okay.
That, hey, maybe things aren't as they seem, not just in like, I'll just say geopolitically, like things
Sure.
aren't what they seem, but otherwise things aren't really necessarily what they seem. And some people really don't do well with that.
Right.
And they get into a place where they then take an ideological standpoint of like, I believe this now.
Mm-hmm.
And they think that, kind of wrapping this into a point here, is like they think that, oh, well, now I found the truth, I'm going to stand with that. But what they didn't see was that's just kind of another pendulum, if
Mm-hmm.
you will. And the pendulum swings like this, whichever direction you want to go, up, down, left, right, doesn't matter.
Yep.
The pendulum's always swinging, which
Yep.
you've highlighted. And it's less about taking a stance
Okay.
and more about finding signal in noise,
Yep.
because we live in a very noisy environment. So like, what is signal, which I believe is wisdom, which founded the earth.
Yeah.
God spoke wisdom and the earth was established, and that spirit of wisdom is what's carrying us. And it's like, stay tapped into that and less about like, I believe this now. But that is what brought me here, was the initial deception. And then I was like,
Mm.
I need to know.
Okay.
That's like a 15-year pursuit of like, I need to know.
Yeah. I think it makes you a really valuable person to know, but also valuable in your industry too, because I've seen there's a couple of examples where there were, I know you had one in the last week or so, just unique situations where now you have this bent of, don't take no for an answer. There's always a solution. Let's get creative here. Just because somebody else said it can't be done, I'm not going to take their word for it. We're going to figure something out. So how has that then like poured over into the business side of things for you?
Yeah, that's always been my approach, is like, not always, but that's been a large approach, is like, hey, it can be done,
Mm-hmm.
but does the return for everyone match the investment?
Right.
Basically, is like, how do we get it done? Could it be done practically? What is the cost? And then definitely anything can be done. But one thing I've learned is like, presenting options to someone is really key. Like, you can't just say, oh, hey, this thing could be done. You need to have a plan when you
Mm-hmm.
present it to someone, especially in business. Like, yeah, we could do that. We could do 100 other things. I'm sure one of them will work. Let us dive
Right.
into it.
Right.
No, here's the plan. Here's what we think could happen. Let us investigate. We'll get back to you.
Yep.
Then you try to bring it to fruition.
That's right.
And that just has happened a couple times. In innovation is key.
Right.
It's key.
Yep.
Really key.
So I want to talk a little bit about who you serve in your business. Obviously, not
Sure.
every business is the right fit for every customer. So
For sure.
what are some of the unique problems that you guys solve, and who are your customers that typically their expectations are exceeded and they have a good experience because they were the right fit for what you guys do?
Yeah. Okay. On the homeowner side, that would be someone who just had their bathroom remodeled.
Okay.
And they need frameless glass.
Okay.
They saw it on Pinterest. They know what they had before. They want that. That's an easy proposition. Hey, go in there, measure their shower for glass, and then just ask them questions. What are you looking for? Saying things like, they're like, well, I was thinking about this thing. And it's like, well, seems like you wanted a door and a panel, or seems like you wanted a slider. Let that investigation kind of play out. See what people are actually looking for. Because
Right.
one thing in the trades that I've learned is a gentleman I know who'd been in this industry a long time. I asked him one time, I said, how do you determine what somebody wants and then give it to them? Like, did you send them a proposal? Like, did you have a 3D rendering?
Yep.
He said, what do you mean? And I kind of elaborated, and he said, no, this is what I do, and this is what I tell them I do. And then I give them what I do. He's
Mhm.
like, I did 3 things. I did these 3 models. That's what I did. And I would just push them towards one of those options. And so after that, my frame kind of broke, and I was like, I started to notice in the trades, a lot of people come in. Like, I was in a bathroom the other day, and a woman was getting quotes for remodels, and she said they wanted to rip out my window. They come in and tell you what they're going to do for your situation. And I'm like, well, why not just hear what they want to do, ask some questions, and then if we can do that, let's do that.
Yeah.
And then we do that, and then they're really happy because it wasn't my idea, it was their idea.
Mm-hmm.
And lifetime guarantee, risk reversal things like, hey, well, how do I know this is going to hold up? Because I put my name on it for life. That's one way,
Right.
There's a reputation. Sometimes I'll give you my personal phone number if you have concerns.
Right.
That type of stuff that just goes the extra mile. And in terms of builders, communication is key. Staying in touch with them, just going. My uncle told me one time, Connor, if you go 2% even farther than the average, it will compound into things you never imagined.
For sure. For sure.
So,
So talk to me about the types of bathroom renos that we're talking about though. Is this like people that are, building these like, borderline palaces of bathrooms? Or are these sometimes people that are just like, hey, I mean, it's just a little 2-bedroom, 1-bath cottage with a shower tub combo
yep,
and we need some glass. Like,
yep,
where do you fall in that whole spectrum of how you help those folks?
both,
Okay.
both. I mean, obviously, been in really prestigious neighborhoods, doing things that were like, wow,
Yeah.
Business owners who like got really wealthy,
Yeah.
and they're just like, I want this crazy thing, and it's like, cool, let's do that. Other people who just flip house investors who
Right.
they have a house, they need some shower glass in the master, and they're gonna leave the tub with a shower curtain. 2-bedroom, 1-bath situations, 2s, all kinds of stuff. Homeowners who just had a remodel,
Mm-hmm.
and they're very budget conscious, and they oftentimes it comes down for us to the same way in any business. Do they know you? Do they get to know you? Do they know you? Were you a referral? Did they like you? Did they trust you?
Right.
And then even if the price is higher, I trust this person and I like them.
Yeah.
So even when there is a budget, it's like sometimes people do stretch.
Yep.
Sometimes we're not going to be the right fit.
Okay.
So
This is a conversation I love. Let's talk about the financial side of things a little bit then. So,
Sure.
I know about both my business and yours that neither one of us are the cheapest options on the market for what we do.
For sure.
I just want to hear a little bit of your perspective on why that is, like why you chose to position yourself the way that you did, and maybe what are some of the pros and cons of that? Because I mean, I'll just speak for myself. I think there's actually a lot of power in doing business the way that we choose to do it at Limitless, and that we know there's a certain subset of the market that's just not going to be a right fit for what we do, and we're a-okay with that because
For
what
sure.
we know is that not everybody needs the same thing. So for us to try to craft one solution that's going to be the right fit for everybody, it's actually usually going to be an okay fit for everybody, and it's not going to be a great fit for anybody.
Yeah.
Right. So instead, we'd rather be really great for the people that are the exact fit for what we do, how we do it, all that structure. Right. And pricing is actually one of our tools to align that. Right. It actually
Absolutely.
is a little bit of a magnet in that it repels
Yep.
the people that aren't
Yep.
going to be a great fit. And
Yep.
in a way, it actually attracts the people that are, because those people who are a good fit actually assign a certain value to what we do, what they're going to gain as a result of accomplishing these goals, all those kind of things. So
Absolutely.
I'm just curious to hear your perspective on some of that in terms of how you decide to position yourself in the market. I know you're smart enough and I know you do your research, so you know where you stand in terms of competitors. And if somebody wanted to get it, $500 cheaper somewhere else, they probably could.
Guaranteed.
Right. All right.
Guaranteed.
So
One
why
phone
are
call.
you okay with that? And how does it benefit your business to be positioned the way that you are, other than saying, hey, we have a higher profit margin? But how does that benefit the consumer? Because I think in a lot of ways, our pricing actually benefits the consumer, but I'm curious to hear your perspective on some of that.
Yep. And I'm going to disclaim by saying, I love your perspective,
Yeah.
obviously. And I'm going to disclaim by saying there are some people who will never understand this and never get this,
For
maybe
sure.
on the consumer side.
For sure.
That's okay.
Yeah.
They
They just think you're greedy.
they just think you're greedy.
Yep.
And that's okay.
Yep.
That's totally fine. I'm good with it.
Yeah.
The point is, luckily, I in my digging, in my research, I found a guy named Chris Voss.
Yeah.
Never
Split the difference.
never split the difference,
Yeah.
right? And so I started to think about it. Then I met a glass business owner who
Okay.
became a friend and a mentor. More friend, less mentor, but provided outsized value to me. And
Okay.
he's also aligned with the Voss dynamic and has built an absolute machine.
Okay.
It's insane. Luckily, he's been there since like day one, and
Okay.
he explained something to me. He said, so if you take a job for less money, let's say you discounted somebody what you know you're worth. Well, what would happen psychologically? Well, you would end up feeling like you got beat up, right? And so subconsciously, even though you're a good person with good intentions, you're way less inclined to go the extra mile because you felt like you discounted this person you can't avoid it. It's just a intrinsic mechanism of human
Mm-hmm.
behavior,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's just how humans are. So he said, is that helping them or actually saving them that $300, $400, $500, or is that harming them? So he's walking me through this whole process,
Right.
and I'm starting to get it. And he said, so basically, the conversation wasn't this simple. It was over, a month or so in the beginning. Well, then how do you frame it where they don't feel like they're getting beat up?
Mm-hmm.
How do you demonstrate value to them? Well, you listen to their vision and you ask questions and you make them feel heard
Mm-hmm.
and you actually hear them what they want. And when they actually feel heard and they know that they're actually solving the problem that they had, whether it's as simple as getting shower glass, they're going to be much more receptive to the idea that you're not just there to tell them, I'm going to put a piece of glass in your shower and I'm going to drill some holes and screw it and leave and never hear from you again.
Right.
No, they feel heard. Does it take more investment to get
Mm-hmm.
them to that stage of like customer acquisition? Like all of the things the customer service level required, way higher of an investment level.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like riding a bike. It has to be practiced again and again and again.
Mm-hmm.
And employees, this is not a model that is taught.
Right.
So you have more investment into employees, getting them to understand the sales process. But the outsized results live in the customers that you serve are going to be better served. And ultimately, I try to tell people that have worked with me and people that work with me now in my business, if someone's calling you about frameless shower glass, the money is not the real issue. The money's there.
Correct.
They have the budget. The real issue is they want to feel heard.
Mm-hmm.
They want to feel valued. They want a good product.
Yep.
That's it.
That's right.
That's the end of the model.
Yep. So, but you're in a way, like you said, and it sounds like this mentor helped point this out. You are solving a problem for them by valuing this the way that you are, by now facilitating and allowing a level of service that it would not be possible.
Would not be possible.
You know what I'm saying?
No.
Yep.
No.
So I tell people from the Limitless perspective, like that is one of the problems that we try to solve is that there's publicly available data and you'll find ranges of anywhere from 50 to 80% of people that see a physical therapist never actually complete whatever recommended plan was given to them. Right.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Right. And so we sit back and we go, well, why is that? Let's think about that for a second. There's, of course, many different number of factors. We can always use the blanket, it depends. But yet you see the people on the other side of the spectrum that look and they go, I can't believe there are people that want to charge $150, $200, $300, $500 an hour to work with patients. That is theft. That is borderline unethical.
Sure.
And you're just like, okay, but hold on a second. How ethical is it that we continue to push a product that potentially 80% of the market tells us they find no value in? And not only do they find no value in it, but if they don't find value in it, they're obviously not going to receive said benefit from it. And therefore, not only have they maybe had a bad experience there, but now the entire profession, the entire industry of essentially non-operative healthcare is now thrown away, right? It's like, I tried that. It didn't work.
Yep.
Did you?
Yep.
Right? Or were you just given a really bad product and a really bad experience?
For
right?
sure.
Right?
For sure.
So you can choose then to align yourself in a way that goes, hey, I know based on the model that we've chosen, I know exactly what the quality of the process, the experience, the fulfillment piece is going to be every single time. And I can actually set that floor extremely high. And one of the reasons I can do that is because of that financial model. Because
absolutely,
not only does that financial model attract the right people on the client side, but it attracts the right people on the employee side
absolutely,
too, right?
Absolutely.
And it takes both to make it work.
Everybody has to be staked.
Correct.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so that is one of the most powerful, I don't call it a bargaining chip, but it's a variable in the process is how invested are all parties in making sure this process is going to get to completion and is going to be successful, right? And when there's a huge mismatch between two sides, I'm sure you probably heard the phrase like, I can't want it for you, right? You know?
For sure.
So
for sure,
what that model ultimately assures is that we're not in that dynamic, that super disproportionate, like, well, I really want success for this person, but this person's only here because somebody told them they had to be.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Or
terrible
somebody's
model.
only choosing this because this was the cheapest one they could find and you won the low bid process. And so therefore, low bid product, low bid effort, low bid engagement on their end, whatever. Right? So I guess all that to say, circling back, being that there is actually a value and a service that comes from positioning yourself the way that you are. right? There's nothing we need to
Absolutely.
apologize for. And in fact, we are able to raise the standard of the entire market and profession as a result, right?
I would need to apologize if I was doing it the other way or you were
Right.
doing it the other way.
That's exactly right.
No offense to anyone.
Yeah.
That's if you look at what's good and ethical.
Mhm. And we talk about ethical. We use the word professional integrity in our business all the time, and we even tell people, "Hey, it would be a violation of my professional integrity for me to undersell you in this situation, right? For me to tell you,
Sure.
oh, all it's going to take is this, when I know it's going to take significantly more for you to get there.
Yep.
But all I'm trying to do is soften the blow a little bit for you so that you don't feel quite as much of that like goosebumpy friction that you get whenever you start to have an uncomfortable financial conversation. It's like, but the only person I'm serving in that situation is me. All I'm doing is trying to cover for my
Exactly.
own fears and insecurities and whatever. And at the end, we're going to be a couple months into this process and you're going to be disappointed about how it went. And I'll be able to point back to that very first conversation we had. And if I'm being honest with myself, going, I could have seen this coming,
For sure.
but
For
I
sure.
chose comfort instead of
For
whatever
sure.
we might call discomfort in that situation. When
Yes.
if we could just give people the honest truth about the situation of here's the extent of the problem and here's what it's going to require to fix that,
Yes.
then they actually, it's the most ethical thing we can do because then they get to make an informed decision.
Absolutely.
That's what we talk about all the time too, is like, I have no problem if somebody tells me no because they got to make an informed decision, right? Obviously, we hate the times where we didn't ever actually get a chance to let people make an apples to apples comparison or get the information they need to make the decision.
Of
But
course.
we can always live with the fact that somebody says no, having made an educated decision, right?
Yes.
What I can't live with is people saying yes in an uneducated way, right?
Yeah.
Going like,
Yeah.
yeah, sounds good. Okay, what? Sign me up.
Yep.
And then 2 weeks later going, wait, what is all this? And how much does it cost and whatever? And so I guess the last thing I'll say on cost too is something that I wouldn't say we lead with it necessarily, but it is a distinguisher in the healthcare space in that price transparency is not a common thing in the healthcare space, right?
That's been made clear.
Yeah, right. It's like one of the few industries where like, I mean, you never like drive off a car lot and go, I wonder how much this car I just bought costs. Right? Like you kind of know that going into the process, right?
Yeah.
But yet you can leave a healthcare facility and have zero idea what that whole process just cost, right? You'll find out, right?
Which is the preferred way for the people who extract profit.
Correct. And not just that, it's also, I will say, I've found the people that navigate or that gravitate towards healthcare in general are typically very altruistic people, and they have a very hard time with this idea of like transacting money for their time.
Interesting. Ah.
And so by creating the model that we did, it separates those people from the money side altogether. Like to me, it was very frustrating as a clinician to work in an environment prior to starting my own business where someone could walk in and ask me, hey, that session that we just completed today, how much did it cost? And legitimately my answer would be, I don't know. I have no idea.
Wow.
I'm completely detached from that process
Wow.
whatsoever. I might get the angry phone call months later when somebody got a bill in the mail, but I say, I didn't write that bill. I wrote a note that said what we did, and then that got coded by somebody else, and then it got sent off to your insurance, and this got denied, and here's your cost now.
Yep.
Right? Whereas I feel I sleep so much better at night knowing that before somebody ever comes in for their first appointment, they know exactly what that first appointment is going to cost.
Love it.
And they get to make that informed decision right off the jump. And if it's that valuable to them, great. And if it's not, that's okay too. But I get to sleep well knowing that what I'm not going to do is 60 or 90 days later have a surprise in somebody's mailbox going, I know you thought it was going to be like 30 or 40 bucks, but it's actually like 10 times that. You're like, whoa.
But Jordan, that's just the way it is, man.
I know.
Just keep going with the status quo.
Right, I know. But unfortunately, that is, I mean, gosh, we could go on the big healthcare thing for a long time, but that's how it's always worked, right? Is that like,
it's unfortunate.
I mean, hey, we're allowed to do this. This is what we're going to do. And, you know, we get to detach our providers from the cost side of things so you can ask all the questions you want, but they're not going to be able to answer it. Like it's a level beyond plausible deniability. It's like,
I wasn't going to say that, but
ignorance, right? Like they just have no idea.
For sure. For sure.
So before I go off on that tangent, I guess I'll just wrap it up with a bow by saying, I sleep well at night knowing that we allow people to make informed decisions from a cost standpoint. And I know that's something that you value as well, going like, hey,
absolutely.
When we walk through this whole process, you got to decide whether this is something that you value or not. What we're not going to do is upcharge for this change.
No.
You know what? I know we started with this, but now we found this new material and we're going to sub this in and surprise, here's an extra add-on at the end. But what we did was we got you because we were the lowest bid or we came in at the lowest price. And now what we get to do is nickel and dime you along the way. Like I can't live that way, and I'm glad to know that that's not the way that
Yes.
you
Yes.
practice as
One,
well.
one, one quick thing. I
Yeah.
posited this ethical dilemma to my dad long ago in
Okay.
another industry when I was in aviation. I said, Dad, this is what's going on ethically. Somebody was just doesn't even matter the circumstance. I said, how do they sleep at night? And his answer shocked me. He said, Son, that person sleeps like a rock. So you need to never worry about that again. You
Hmm.
need to just go on with your life and do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because the people who do that, they have no problem with it. So if you want to make a change, if somebody has, hey, we'll be the low bidder, we'll come in, we'll upsell you. Okay. If that's how you make your living and you sleep, okay, no problem.
Yeah. Yep.
No problem.
And yet, you still say, I choose to be different for some reason. So I guess I'll ask you then, what is that reason? Because you could just be another one of those guys.
Yeah.
So why is it for you that you've chosen to say, hey, I mean, I got to design this business. It's my business. I can do it however I want.
Yeah.
Why not just do that? Like,
Yeah.
you'd probably have a lot more leads coming in if you did that way, right? Of just like, hey, dangle the carrot, the little hook out here where we hope to get them to bite, and then we'll try to reel them in later. Like, why not be that guy?
Well, I mean, financially, it's a short bag
Sure.
because you're not going to get the Google reviews, which we know are trust currency.
Mm-hmm.
Businesses operate on trust. You're not going to have that. You're not going to have referrals as much. Like, you actually break it down, it is the shortest bag possible.
Mm-hmm.
Do people get insanely wealthy and roll up businesses in trades and other places and sell them and make $10 million by being unethical? Sure.
Mm.
Do other people grind for 30 years and they make a decent living by being unethical or whatever you'd like to call it? Yeah, for sure. But it's not where real outsized returns live.
Mm.
Like, just from a financial standpoint, when you do that, you're selling yourself short.
Right.
And you could have so much more.
Yep. And the other thing is somebody wise told me this too, is that when people choose you for price, right? When that becomes your differentiator in a positive way of like, we're the lowest price, they will stop choosing you as soon as you are not the winner on price,
100%.
right?
Commodity.
It's impossible to build loyalty in a manner where their loyalty is only to that number.
Yeah.
And the minute that number doesn't work in your favor, that's it,
You're
right?
gone.
You've built up no other equity or trust, like you said, with that person. So it becomes a dead end.
I'm reminded of the scripture that says, do you build your house on the sand or do
Right.
you build it on the rock?
100%.
So
That I think that's a great analogy.
harder to put the footer in a rock, for sure. Bigger investment, but
Oh yeah, but built to last.
built to last.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Okay. Before we wrap up, just anything else that you'd like to share in terms of personally, business, anything like that, any other topics that you hoped we would cover or anything else you want to share with the audience?
Not particularly, but I'd like to go back to one point that
Okay.
when we were talking about selling and ethics, I think
Mhm.
this is a really important point that I was just blessed to hear. King Solomon, who was the wisest, wealthiest man who ever lived at that time, he wrote down, I'm gonna botch it, but he basically said, in paraphrase, he who withholds grain will be hated.
Mm.
And basically, if you have a solution that is good for the market, good for you, and good for the individual, you should sell it.
Mhm.
If you have something that people want, you should be selling it. Like, this objection to sales where people are like, I can't sell, I don't know. Like, a lot of business owners, they can't sell.
Mhm.
It's like, okay, well, is your product good? Are you actually going to help people? It would be bad for you to withhold it from the market because you're letting the next person come in and sell a less good solution at a less good service level. And you're actually like, you're doing everyone a disservice when
Mhm.
you could just be that person.
That's right.
You could do them a solid.
That's right.
So,
So the last thing I'll comment on that too is a unique challenge I think I've faced as a business owner as I've continued to build out a team, right? Is that yes, we do ultimately help sell to our clients and we, help build a customized plan and talk to them about what it's going to require from them and cost and all that kind of stuff. But in order for us to be successful in that, we have to believe in the value of whatever it is that we're bringing to the table too. And we know what the other alternatives are out there on the market and
Yep.
maybe what we would value those relative to ours, right? And I think when I talked earlier about the type of people that gravitate towards what we do, that's a hard exercise for them. So I've actually learned there's really two sides of the sales coin for me. There's, we sell to our consumers, but I also have to sell my own team members' value back to them sometimes, right? Like
I'm
I
sure.
almost have to be the guy that holds up a mirror and be like, do you realize the value of what you just helped this person accomplish?
Yes.
Because I know in the moment it was probably hard for you to sit there and say, hey, here's what's going to be required of you. It's going to take months. This is going to be thousands of dollars potentially of your money. This is going to be time you're going to have to take off work. This is whatever it is, right? There's going to be inconvenience. There's going to be friction along the way, right?
Yep.
And I still think for a number of people that I either have worked on my team or are currently a part of my team, there's still moments where I have to like hold that mirror up back for them and be like, but do you have any idea how valuable that is to somebody? Because we know they could quote unquote go elsewhere, but they couldn't get this. This thing that you're proposing, like, is of immense value. And that is a skill. Like, to me, selling to the consumer was always easy because it's like, because nobody believes in it more than I do. Like, I mean, I'm the one that took the risk and built the thing, right?
For sure.
But then like taking the technician who's just got all the skills is actually the belief behind those skills. It's actually the most important thing that I've found for people that are successful on my side of things. And so I don't know exactly where you're at in terms of like having a team and other people that are involved in that process. So whether you're there now or whether it's coming down the road, it's just, it's a very interesting thing that I've had to learn of like, yeah, I can believe it as much as I want, but then every other part of our team has to also see the value in what it is that we're doing, or the whole process starts to fall apart a little bit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one thing I'll say is it only comes through, in my opinion, it only comes through them. They're going to hear about it. You're going to bring them in. You're going to tell them about it.
Yep.
But until they do it and they feel it and they see it and they touch it and they know it, then it starts to click. If they say yes, if they just say yes, if this person who works in your business just says, yes, I'll keep growing through discomfort, and then they see it, it starts firing on all cylinders.
100%.
And they love it. And there will be some who don't, but it's like you said, it's a self-selection method.
It is. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yes.
Well, hey, Connor, I appreciate your time. We'll have to do this again sometime, but
Yes.
Excited to be able to share this. Connor, let's finish by just letting people know where to find you, and if they're interested in contacting you about either chatting with you, maybe getting some work done by you and your company, just share how they can best get in touch with you.
Absolutely. Instagram, all the socials, of course. QualityGlassUpstate.com. Easy. And 864-790-6358. Call me.
Cool.
Anytime.
Yep, we'll have the information up on the screen.
Great.
Connor, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Look forward to chatting again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Me
man.
too, Drew.